Hello, it is me, the political kid, and you probably know that already, but hey, it's me, and I'm back to my regular schedule. I'm almost at 1500, so if you were to subscribe, I could almost actually, hold up. Yeah, I'm one away from reaching 1500, so if you guys were to subscribe, please do. I really just try to put a lot of focus and effort into making these types of videos so it could kind of give a perspective on just younger people, not just like the ones who could vote, but the ones who can't vote but are still politically aware of the situation. Anyways, I am a moderate Republican. I am someone who is fiscally conservative in a way and also progressive on other issues like stuff. But yeah, I support the Republican Party. Not this one, though. That's the problem. I do not support the Trump administration. But I also don't support the Biden administration. Because you know what? They both suck. And this is also a problem for the Republican Party in 2028. Ignoring all the, like, speculation that Trump might run for a illegal third term, Vance is going to probably be the front runner unless a more moderate, like someone like Rubio, were to gain a lot of support if, say, the Trump administration is really unpopular and like if JD Vance is unpopular. But if everything goes the way it is currently for the next 3.5 years, probably is going to be JD Vance as the nominee. However, this is not great, as in the 80s we had a very similar figure to Trump. However, Ronald Reagan was actually way more popular than Trump, and he had a lot of support from both sides, actually. And this allowed his fairly not unpopular, but not also very popular Vice President George H.W. Bush to slide into the presidency for a term. And the way that this was conducted is kind of seen how is that they have moderate successes and use those against the Democrats not successes from like 10 years ago, uh, from Jimmy Carter. And that's kind of the attack they kind of played during the 1988 election. And George H.W. Bush won in a landslide. Only Michael Dukakis only won 100 electoral votes. Imagine a candidate or something like between 100 and 110 electoral votes. And imagine somebody in this day and age, in the 21st century, getting only 100 electoral votes. It hasn't happened yet. We haven't had a figure since the Reagan 80s who's got over 400 electoral votes. This was only because, and I repeat this freaking again, because Reagan had support from both sides. He had kind of pushed the Soviets back away from a nuclear Armageddon crisis, and he was just going through the recovery period from the like stagnation of the 70s, since the economy goes up and down, and it just so happens that in the 80s the economy went up. And with his tax cuts that honestly weren't very good considering how kind of the deficit we're in right now, but back then, very popular. There weren't as much taxes, and it was really increasing the GDP of this country. Yeah, we don't have that. Our deficit, which would probably need a lot of cuts in the budget and tax increases to actually fix that, we can't really afford to have major tax cuts. But we also have other issues to this economy. Number one, tariffs. Tariffs are not great. And for any manufacturing American, yeah, you probably love tariffs because it gives you a lot more money for a product that you would take. It would take more. It would take more money to make than say in China. I'm just going to use that example to talk about tariffs, considering that we have a big trade deficit with them, but it's for the right reasons. Obviously, China has a very big manufacturing base because they have a lot of rural, poor uh, people that are willing to go with uh, money that isn't acceptable in America because that's a livable wage to the Chinese population in some areas. And so they're able to make more cheap products for in a less amount of time, which means that they're going to be way more successful in a kind of to in it's going to be way more successful compared to American manufacturing. Obviously, tariffs are a tax on an import or export, and Chinese making sure that they're not just selling cheap products towards the rest of the world wanted to make tariffs on exports, so anything that goes out uh, gets tariffed. And obviously, by this, Americans have to pay a little bit more than people in China actually do for the same product, but that's only because we have a way better GDP per capita, and our manufacturing sucks. And this looks like a trade deficit. So, what do a lot of people say? Let's increase tariffs on our end so anything that we were to go to export to them and anything that we import here will be tariffed, making it more expensive for American consumers and also the Chinese who make them and also consume other American products. Obviously, this it has worked in bringing some money to the U.S. federal government. Already, we've had billions of dollars already made from these tariffs. However, it's also increasing the price. Obviously, it's gonna do that. Considering that tariffs don't really affect the companies, since the companies just don't want to lose money, so obviously they're going to raise up the prices on the consumer. And guess what? That 25% tariff on a $100 product is actually turned into $150 product, considering that you have to multiply it by 25%, and then you have to also multiply that by another 25%. So it's actually more than $150. And then we get into this issue where if products are expensive and people don't want to buy expensive products, then obviously they're not going to buy as much. And when we don't buy as much, our GDP goes down. And what's the biggest, best part of our country? We have the best economy. And when this messes with our economy, that kind of takes away the like one of the biggest aspects of actually us being a superpower. This is very unpopular, and it's going to get even more unpopular once tariffs actually go in, considering that we're still in a kind of transition period from the Biden era of less tariffs to the Trump era of more tariffs. So, what do you think is going to happen? With not able to make a lot of tax cuts, the economy that had recovered from the COVID era is now going to go down because the economy goes up and down. What does that equal? Probably not going to win 2028. They totally can, and I really wish the economy is better and they slightly lower tariffs. And to be honest, there's still obviously going to need tariffs. We can't have free trade for everything, obviously, since that would give certain products more leniency towards others. So, just moderated free trade would be better because obviously NAFTA sucked, and we need a better version that just allows equal opportunity for every side, that just so it's everything cheap gets a little tariff while everything expensive is kind of free trade enabled. You get that? I support that. That's done. JD Vance could totally win. He could totally. The Democrats also could be very unpopular, so that's another aspect. But based on the economy alone, it's not looking great in a sense. Yeah. But we'll see what happens. Hey, we got another 3.5 years, so anything could happen. Okay. I'll see you later. Please subscribe. And I hope you liked the video. Anyway, goodbye.